So we're now at the point with polar coordinates where we're going to be starting to do some calculus, and this is where things get really interesting. So we're going to be thinking about integration of polar coordinates. And I've said here that when you're integrating normal Cartesian 2D areas, we know that we're summing a bunch of infinitely thin rectangles. And so when I'm talking about what I'm trying to find the area of here, we're actually pretending that underneath the curve is a rectangle, which would have an area of f of x dx, f of x being the height and dx being the width. And then we add them all together to find the area. And I think I mentioned this to Sam before, but this symbol that we have for integration is actually the continuous version of sigma. It is sigma. So you know sigma like this? That's for discrete numbers where you're adding up like the natural numbers. This is continuous, meaning that you're going to just, you're doing like every single rectangle infinitely thin that goes in between them. Yeah.
It's called the integral.
It's called the integral, but it's also like this symbol is the sigma symbol. And this AB is kind of like r equals 1 and n that you have here. So they are the same symbol. And so that's what it looks like for when it's just with rectangles in 2D. But then you've also had a look in Core Pure Year 1, and it comes up in Year 2 again. We've looked at volumes of revolution, and that's done by summing the volumes of infinitely thin cylinders. And so the cylinders were pi f of x squared dx, where f of x was like the radius. You add them all together to get the total volume. So you have pi f of x squared dx, and we more commonly see that as pi y squared dx, because f of x is the same as y. And so this is a visual idea of what's happening here. You're imagining like all of those kind of like medallions like all lined up to find out the volume that's underneath it. So we have to kind of like flip around and think, what's it going to be like with polar coordinates? Because it's going to be a slightly different kind of definition. So I've said, can we apply the same principle to find the area bound between a polar curve and two half lines, theta equals alpha and theta equals beta? Well, just go back to what we've got here. This one was about rectangles. This one was about cylinders. And this was rectangles like as we're going across the x-axis. This is going to be different because we don't have an x-axis anymore. We have the length and then we have the angle that it's being rotated. So the way that we look at this is we think about this as being a sector of a circle that we have. Okay? And the idea is that this little d theta that we've got would become so small until eventually it was like the thinnest slice of cake or the thinnest slice of pizza you could ever imagine, and you infinitely add all of those up together. So instead of a rectangle, it's a sector, which means that you're not finding out area in like a vertical kind of way. You're finding area in a radial kind of way. So the area that you're looking for is not going to be in that traditional way that we think about area being underneath a curve like this. The areas that we're going to be finding are found radially. In other words, imagining the pole and thinking about almost like rays of sunshine, like coming out from it, that is going to be what the area is that we're looking for. So the area of each sector, we know from chapter 5 in Pure 2, which is radians, we know it's a half r squared theta. But in this case, we're saying it as a small change in theta, so it's a half r squared d theta. Then all you do is you add up all of those together. So you will be doing a half r squared d theta, because you know you can pull a factor out to the front. And you will be integrating it not between the x coordinates, but between the angles that it is, between alpha and beta. So if we were going to be integrating it between alpha and beta, the area that we would actually be finding would be, and I guess this is kind of the way we would imagine it, it's like all of these bits, if you imagine these lines being, it's kind of this shape. And I'm drawing them as lines because I want us to think that each of those little d thetas is representing one of those rays of, almost like rays of light that's coming out from the middle. And I'm making a big deal about this because they're still going to do some tricky things later. They're going to do things like this, where they're going to give you a curve, and they're still going to ask you to find the area of something that looks like normal integration. But you need to know that it doesn't work like normal integration. You need to do like a bit of problem solving to think, how would you get that? Why is it d theta? It's a bit like when we had on this bit over here, that it's dx, because it's saying it's a small change in x. The d stands for delta, which means small change in x. So it's d theta because it's a small change in that angle as we're moving around. Do you have a question? No? You sure? Yeah. So later on, they're going to ask us to do some things where there is a vertical line, but we have to use problems to try and think about how we're going to do it. Yeah, you're going to do some, you won't do anything like that. You'll do more like geometry. You'll be thinking about like maybe the area of like a triangle here, and then the area of this bit, which is like the rays of light, like that, and then you just remove a triangle. Pardon? Yes, exactly. This is really similar to the stuff we did with radians. Okay, so I'm just going to separate. So this is the formula you need. It's a half r squared d theta between alpha and beta. This one, I believe, is in the formula book, but it's basically just the area of a sector. So you should know this already.